Sisters and brothers, away with me, Pastor Melo speaking. In the name of Tatanzandi Amazulu, Creator of heavens and earth, the one who anointed me to be your servant and to get you prepared to go back to Zion, Kongo Diantotela, Luvuvamu, peace be unto you. Today is Sunday, September 20th, 2020, and we are going to make our 21st video. The theme of this video is this biblical oxymoron is a bomb. But before going further on, we must define what is an oxymoron. An oxymoron is, in rhetoric, a figure of style which brings together two contradictory terms. For example, in English, we can say a clear shadow. Or in Latin, we have a very famous formula which is Festina, lente, which means hurry up slowly. And we have another one which is very famous also in all languages. I think it is an eloquent silence. You know that in the first hours of cinema, the actors had to make themselves understood without their voice being heard. And this will introduce our biblical passage, which is the famous oxymoron, which in reality is a bomb. We'll find it in Isaiah chapter 42, verses 1 to 3, that I'm going to cite. So, Isaiah chapter 42. Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations. He will not shout or cry out, or raise his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. In his teaching, the islands will put their hope. Sisters and brothers, it is in fact the contradictory, eloquent silence which we can sense in our biblical passage of today, which will plunge us into the heart of our 21st subject. I repeat, our 21st subject is this biblical passage, or this biblical oxymoron is a bomb. I would like you, sisters and brothers, to explain to me how can someone bring or announce justice to the nations without his voice being heard. In fact, this statement is like the passage we find in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12, a two-edged blade. The first blade reveals that in reality the Messiah had to return incognito on earth. While being on earth, his voice will not be heard in the streets, unlike the first time where Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua HaNotri, as stated in Matthew chapter 9, verse 35, had imperatively to make his voice heard. So it is stated Jesus went to all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing all kinds of diseases and all kinds of infirmities among the people. So Jesus went through the streets from town to town, from village to villages. The second blade of our biblical passage of today is that there's a powerful sign which was on the body of the Messiah and which dispensed him to speak, to cry out in the streets. Only that sign would show his justice to the nations. And I think that many of you have already understood that this sign or that sign is the fact that the Messiah is black and African. By being black and African, he restores the truth about the true Isolele, thus pulverizes a lie that is almost 2,000 years old. Second, by restoring the truth, his righteousness, his justice shines in the eyes of the nations, for such is the plan of the Most High for humanity. As we can read in the first book of Samuel, chapter 2, verses 7 to 9, it is written that the Most High dispossesses, the Most High makes rich, the Most High makes low, he makes high. He raises up the poor out of the dust. He lifts up the needy from the dunghill. This word is very powerful. From the dunghill, he lifts up the needy to make them sit with princes and inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Most High, belong to Tatanzang. He has set the word on them. He will keep the feet of his holy ones, but the wicked shall be put to silence in darkness. Yes, his justice is for the poor of the earth, but the wicked will be put to silence in darkness. For by strength shall no man prevail. Sisters and brothers, I would like you to explain another thing. How can a white Christ, just by his presence, without speaking a word, make justice prevail? This is impossible. The message would be that of 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 4. Everything remains as from the beginning of creation. Yes, with a white Christ, there's no revolution. Everything remains the same. But now, his being black and African brings about a revolution in the world. How can the oppressors judge the victims? How will the slavers go to judge those they have subjected to the most abominable slavery for 400 years? How will the liars go to judge those who speak the truth? Only a black African Christ can, by his very presence, bring down the arrogant, the haughty, those who believe themselves pure and are an abomination in the eyes of the Almighty.